everybody, how are you all doing today? Welcome to another Unreal stream where my friend Gemini are learning how to use the Unreal Engine. He's still finishing up his Pega side, and hopefully this time we don't go off track and actually do the working with audio segment that we were supposed to do last time, but we ended up talking about something else. Mainly, what led to that was something I posted on my Discord news section. Because I am considering, I don't want to expand to a third channel. More like I need to expand to a third channel. Not something I'll talk about on stream, since it goes a bit into politics, and I don't like talking about politics on stream. So while I wait for him to finish up, might as well sell out. In the description below, there's a link to the Power Shop where you can purchase energy mixes, sleep mixes, hydration, shakers, and even stickers. And if you use credit code Blackheart, you will get a 10% discount, and at the same time help support my channel. You'll be supporting my channel and getting something good in the process. From what I've seen so far, their stuff is actually pretty good, and they sell well. Anyways, hopefully this time we can actually carry on with this whole sound classes this time. I am still thinking about the what I talked last time there was about my arts, well, quote unquote art streams, because I still haven't decided it will be like a 2D art stream or will I do Blender instead. I'm still debating that part. I feel like both are potentially true. If I do Blender, it'll be great for if I do like 3D games and stuff, which is probably more towards. My friend Jim does more the 2D game stuff, and well, that would also help. I'll be able to make myself a 2D avatar maybe, and maybe make 2D assets for whatever game we ended up making. If we do make a 2D game, it mostly won't be a sprite art game because sprite art is. I feel like it's maybe harder in my opinion. Plus, I don't have anything to make any tools to make that a little bit easier. Not anyways. Let me switch back to this again. I just showed that stuff to show you guys what we're supposed to be doing today. That is why I select 9.5, because we were supposed to talk about this last time and we just went off the rails with Gemini. Well, I'm just waiting on him. I think he was sending some feedback over to Pega regarding something that he was doing. Let me check real quick. I don't have any messages for him, and he does have labeled that he's doing Unreal. And later on today, we'll be doing some Warframe, which I'll probably just talk about a little bit about the dev stream that it was today. Let's see, while we wait, what can we talk about while we wait? Let's see. I still haven't gotten like any comments or explanation from any viewer regarding some of the things we didn't properly understand, or that we might have understood wrong. I'm not entirely sure. There are some things I would love to understand. I haven't had time to look them up myself either, mainly because of the whole job hunting and taking care of a baby. Hopefully my audio is working. Alright, just in case, I'm gonna have the desktop audio ready for what Jim is. Excuse me, had to do a little yawn there. Let's just say it's been a mentally tiring day for me. But I'm still good enough to do some Unreal stuff. Hopefully we can understand the rest of the sound class just fine, because I'm pretty sure this is something we're going to be using a lot. The part we're supposed to look at now is child class, passive sound mix modifier, routing, submix, loading, and legacy. Hopefully we can get through it all, and hopefully we can understand it all, because this is quote unquote advanced. And I'm no sound engineer, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna struggle with it a bit. I'm mostly a programmer, and hopefully I can get the hang of a art or Blender, depending what I'll end up doing on Tuesdays. I haven't fully decided on that yet. Let's see. Might as well put it on screen, the Unreal and the site, so to show what technically we're gonna be supposed to be looking at today, and hopefully we actually do end up go off the rails. Jim is still finishing up on his Pega stuff. I see he's writing another feedback apparently. As I've bumped into some issue with the site, maybe. That's just me guessing. Hopefully he doesn't take long. I don't start it on my own because this is something we're doing together to start a project together. We're gonna supposedly start with making a clone of some games so to get some practice and try and get the hang of it, of Unreal Engine, and hopefully see if we actually understood much of what we're learning. And then we would hop on into making our own little original thing, or hopefully original. We still have yet to decide what we're actually going to make, what sort of genre we're going to tackle. Are we going to keep it 2D, or are we going to shift to 3D? Or are we going to shift to maybe another engine? Who knows? Like, we don't know. I think I saw one of his VOD, he wanted to talk to me about something called, Game Maker, I think it was. We'll see. We'll try and leave. Hopefully I can talk him to doing it till the end of this, maybe, since we still have yet to decide on this. On what we're going to do. I know Unreal isn't the best for 2D, but yeah, we lost all faith on Unity after their little, well, not little, like very greedy cash grabby move against developers, particularly against indie devs. Which had a lot of questionable legality on that move they tried to pull off. So right, a lot of people just left Unity, myself included. I am not going back to Unity after what they did with that. If there's any like better engine that's easily accessible, like Unreal is, like we can mess with it for free and upload a project up for free, and if we monetize it, we do have a cap of which we can use the engine without having to pay a license up to a certain annual cap. If there is another engine that's like that, that's more suited for 2D, do let us know. It'll be in the chat or down in the comments below if you're seeing the VOD. I myself cannot buy any of the more 2D oriented engines nor pay any licensing. Like RPG Maker is a great great tool for 2D RPG games. From what I've seen a lot of good games made on the RPG Maker, and some not necessarily like RPGs. Like some people managed to pull off some amazing stuff with that engine. There was yet another engine, I cannot remember it, but it was not free. It had a licensing because the free license was very limiting and wouldn't work for us. I would not be able to make a fully fledged game, more like a proof of concept or a demo, but not a fully fledged game because of the limitations. Godot is PC only, and I do think that we should consider the possibility of moving anything we make over into consoles, and who knows, maybe even mobile. I don't really care much about mobile. I don't actually like the idea of mobile development. I feel we'll do a lot better if we stick with PC and console over the mobile stuff. But we'll see. Right now I'm just waiting on Jim, of which he probably lost track of time. I don't know, but I'm not going to interrupt his whole Pega stuff. I know he wants that Pega certification for his curriculum. I also need to learn C++ for this engine. So I know this has this whole blueprint stuff, the Unreal engine, which makes it a lot easier for those that don't know at least the basics of programming. Well, at least they just know the basics of programming, but probably don't know C++. The blueprint does make it easier for that stuff, and I'm almost tempted to experiment with that myself off stream. But just in case I don't do it, in the possibility of Jim deciding of moving on to another engine, or if I do get the hang of C++, it will be better since we'll be able to make our own custom code. Which it has its ups and downs, making one's own custom code. It's more time consuming, it's more prone to bugs, but you make sure that what you're making is what you actually want. Well, in the blueprint, I don't know how blueprints actually work, but I'm pretty sure there's some limitations to that. I don't know if there's some issue to do a hybrid like blueprint and C++. If that's the case, that would be amazing. But we haven't gone to that part of the sessions. Also, I see Jim is getting ready for the Unreal session. I'm gonna hop on into his stage, which you'll probably have to wait till he does his whole intro stuff. There he is. And I just wait. When it comes to games, I'm very my best mixed bag. I like both 2D and 3D, although I tend to favor 3D over 2D most of the time. There are a few 2D games I would love to play, I just either don't have them or I have my worries about the copyrights. Mainly because of the music. Oh wait, that reminds me, I forgot to configure Rebel Galaxy music to lower volumes. Oh, I don't have to worry about copyright on the YouTube side for that game tomorrow. I guess for now we're just waiting now on him to get started. He's probably just setting things up. Let's see. What else can we talk about while we wait? Well, let's see. What is after sound classes? Audio console commands that can be used with.
Hey, let's go ahead and get
I'm
started.
curious on what that's going to be about.
Everybody,
There he is.
it's not showing you right. Hey, what's going on here? Are you not showing yourself? There we go.
No, he's probably having capture
Not sure
issues.
why that was giving me a problem there. Alright, welcome back to another Unreal study session. We'll be joined by Blackheart in just a minute as soon as I invite him to speak. But I wanted to just address the fact that, hey, we're going to be working on some more Unreal Engine study session, looking through tutorials, looking through all the topics, getting ourselves prepped for eventual build of everything. And so yeah, I believe the last thing that we covered was the native sound ambisonics rendering, which we got down to the very bottom and we were like going, we were getting to the point where it was getting a little bit more in depth. I believe we stopped off at sound classes, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a several days since we really covered the Unreal. So let me go ahead and get Blackheart into here and let's start talking about it. So there you go, there, Blackheart.
Hello there, Jim.
How's it going?
I'm an A-okay. From where we left off, we did went through sound classes general properties, and that was it.
Yeah.
We didn't go into child classes on.
Right. Yeah. Right, because we did, talk about the low pass filter, attenuation, and so on and so forth, right? So, Okay, so um, we're gonna continue on from here and uh, move on to child classes and so on and so forth. Now, uh, will we actually be doing something directly in Unreal? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on if we're like really wanting to, uh, you know, get like understand what they're really doing. You know, so far they haven't been, these examples haven't been too bad in that like, hey, I can actually see what they're kind of doing here, so you know, getting to understand like, hey, the child, the children is going down to the child class. Makes perfect sense to me, or at least their screenshots, you know,
Yeah.
are showing enough there. Um, but if we need to step into the into Unreal itself and work on it, then we will. But so far, we haven't really needed to do that too much. So, alright, ready?
Yep.
Alright, so child classes. A sound class can have other classes set as classes. Makes sense.
Hmm.
To add a child class, either click the plus icon in line with the child classes and select it from the drop down. Okay, so you just kind of, select, typically the child classes would have something like, zero array elements or something along those lines there. So if you wanted to add one, then you just hit that plus and then select like a different child class. So makes sense. Um, or drag the sound class onto the graph and connect the children output pin from the parent class node to the input pin of the child class node. So if you have two sound classes there, then you can just take the children, connect it to the to what would be children. So, and I would imagine that you can kind of do that for multiple, not just the single. I don't think
I'm pretty sure you could do
so,
multiple.
yeah. Seeing that there is always the possibility of having multiple children in terms of classes. So when that sound class is set as a child, if set to inherited, see loading, it will inherit features like pitch, volume, loading behavior from the parent class. In this way, the user can alter the settings of both the parent and any of its child classes at the same time. Um, which you have to be a little careful, because if you're if you want the child class to have something that has like a different value than the parent, then like if you modify like for example, if you modify the parent, right, for the pitch, volume, and loading, it modifies the child, right?
Yeah.
But if you go down to the child and modify like volume, for example, like you make it slightly louder, right? But if you go back up to the parent class, if you change the volume there again, that might override what the child has. Might reset it, might set it back to its defaults. So,
Mm.
I would imagine. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I would imagine that would be the case. So, we'd have to be a little careful with that. So, um, passive sound mix modifiers. The sound class can have an array of sound class mixes attached that are triggered automatically when any sound within the sound class is played. These are called passive because they do not need to be manually activated. For example, they are triggered automatically when a member of sound class is played, without the need for an explicit push sound mix modifier command. You can still call the sound mix modifier through a push command if you want, and multiple sound classes and blueprints can refer to the same sound mix modifier. Okay. Again, based off of what they're doing here, obviously Um, they're changing the original class in some way with the mixes. How? Don't really know.
Mm,
Don't know what the mixes are.
I don't know
Um,
myself.
so, um, so not quite sure what's really kind of going on there. They do go to submixes later on in the working with audio section, so we may, we'll get there, I would imagine.
Hopefully.
Um, hmm?
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, we will get to it. It's just, you know,
Yeah, but that
I don't
explains
know.
it properly.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually explaining these in particular. So don't really know. But um, but yeah, the interesting that you can play these individually, and uh, which I mean, maybe it makes sense. I don't know. Not quite sure. Like there's nothing here that really gives a good like explanation as to why you might need that. But obviously, if you have a good sound designer, they might go, well, if you need to have this happen, you need to do this. If you need to have that happen, then you'll probably want to do this, whatever. Um, so we'll have to see. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to really be playing around with this quite a bit when we do get eventually get the sound. So,
Yeah.
but so far,
I
um,
don't know what we would
you know,
use that for.
yeah. Well, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, when we're building our first game, we're probably gonna have fairly basic audio. You know, but I mean, like I said, uh, we'll learn as we go.
Yeah.
So, okay. For example, they're triggered automatically when played. Right. So we've already kind of covered all that. So yeah, we move on. Each passive sound mix modifier can be given a minimum and maximum volume threshold for parametric volume to control when it should activate. As an example, this gives the user a way to prevent a faraway sound that has attenuated to an inaudible quiet volume from triggering a sound mix modifier. Hmm. In what way? you know, it's like, as an example, this gives the user a way to prevent a faraway sound that has attenuated to an audible quiet volume from triggering. Hmm.
I don't really understand it.
Yeah, maybe they. Oh, okay. I get it. I get it. I get it. Okay. So, they don't want that sound being played, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point, like maybe you have maybe you have like a machine shop, right? And you have like presses and clanking and so on and so forth. That's all kind of part of the same sound class, right?
Right.
It's like an ambient sound with you where you have like multiple other sound classes that are kind of a part of the overall sound class, right?
Right.
So, what you can do is you can basically say, well, at a certain point, one person shouldn't necessarily be hearing this anymore. Meaning, like, if you're going further and further away, you may get to a point where you're no longer hearing those particular sounds, right?
Right.
So, um, so as you're going further and further away, the volume of said um, sound effect, sound class is getting lower and lower and lower until you get to a point where it's so far you're so far away that it you know you should no longer hear the clanging or anything along those lines. So it no longer, because you had that minimum volume threshold, once it gets past it, you no longer hear that little clanging sound anymore. That's how I'm kind of interpreting it from from what I'm from what I think is what they're trying to go for here. So at least I hope that's right way of interpreting this. If not, then oh boy, I'm trouble.
If not, then just correct us. If not, correct us on the chat or in the comments if you're watching this later.
Indeed, indeed. But I think that's probably what's kind of going on here.
It does sound like that.
Yeah. With this feature, a sound designer can create complex behavior in EQ and relative volumes in sound classes without adding a lot of blueprint triggers. What is EQ again?
I go back.
I don't know
I
what
don't find
EQ stands for.
No, neither do I. And I couldn't find it.
There's another one that's like, okay, we don't know what that could, what that is referring to at all. So it's not Unreal Engine. So there's something else entirely. Okay, we move on then because no clue. Routing. These settings control how the sound class audio is routed through directional channels with surround sound inputs in mind. So stereo bleed, LFE bleed, voice center channel volume, center channel only, applied ambient volume, and output target. So stereo bleed, this feature is now deprecated. Okay. Alright, we don't need to worry about that apparently.
Apparently not.
I mean, it would be nice if they kind of told us exactly what it's all about anyway. You know,
Yeah.
but apparently it's no longer needed for some reason. Why it's still there, don't really know, but who knows. LFE bleed. The proportion of the signal that should be sent to a low frequency effects channel. The default is 0.5 or 50%. Okay. Not sure what a lower frequency effects channel is all about, but sure. I guess, you know, they're sending a little bit of it to that channel for some reason. Who knows? Unless you're aware they're Blackheart, but
No,
for me, I don't know.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Again, if there's anybody that knows, feel free to put it in the chat or in the comments for these videos. We appreciate any kind of additional input, you know, if you're watching this. Voice center channel volume. The proportion of the signal to be sent to the center channel. This is not a multiplier and the value is not inherited by children. Okay. So okay, so this is a proportion, probably percentage at this point, and it's meant to say go to the center channel. Now I'm assuming that this is, you know, as they mentioned before, this is concerning surround sound setups.
Yeah.
So typically you have something in the center of the room, typically like either behind you or in front of you, that has like the main audio going through it, right? So that's what I imagine that this is, what it's kind of referring to for the most part. Just how much percentage of the volume is going through the main channel or the main speaker versus all the other speakers, kind of thing. So,
Mm.
uh, and apparently, with this checkbox of the center channel only, you can force it to be only the center channel. So when enabled, the sound will sent only to the center channel. So there's that. Apply ambient volume. When enabled, the sounds within the sound class will be affected by ambient zone settings within audio volumes, such as interior and exterior volume and low pass filtering settings. So, okay. So I guess if you don't have this selected, then obviously interior, exterior volume, and low pass filter settings do not affect it whatsoever.
Mm.
So now here's the thing. Here's where um I'm gonna assume that you pretty much want to have like ambient zone settings for just a lot of sounds in general, for the most part. Um, because, or at least, obviously depending on the game, but um, like if you're creating like a first-person shooter or something like that, then you're probably gonna be using a lot of ambient volume settings, wherever you go
Mm.
in like a first-person shooter arena, right?
All right.
Um, or you're gonna have like interior sounds, like someone shooting inside. You'll hear it slightly, but not all that much, right?
Mm.
So so obviously the ambient volumes would step in place on that, but I don't know. I'm just thinking that um the only time that you would never really need ambient volume is if like you're wanting to just kind of play like game music or something like that. You know, then you would never need ambient volume in that. You just want the kind of the background music to be playing, when you're playing the game, right?
Right.
So, you know, I mean, unless you want to change the mood or something like that, like um, you're going from one area to another and you're like going, hey, I'm gonna change the music from something that's like jovial and stuff like that into something a little bit darker or something like that. Maybe you're going into like a horror zone or something like that, so you're kind of making it a little creepy, lowering the volume or something like that. You're just kind of going, there goes the music and good luck, that kind of thing. So um, but obviously you'll have to. We would have to really work on that if we wanted to try to pull that one off. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Output target changes whether sounds within the send class are sent to the main speaker and external controller or controller with playback to speaker if no controller present. Okay. What's the difference between an external controller and a controller? Okay. Not sure what
No.
what that's all about, but um, maybe they'll talk more about that later. But
I don't know. I don't think they will.
maybe not. Who knows? We'll have to we'll have to go from here for now.
Yeah.
Alright. Submix. Sounds within a sound class that can be sent to a submix, which allows multiple sound types to be processed with sound mix effects at once. Okay, so send to master reverb send amount. When enabled, primary reverb settings are applied to sounds within the sound class. Default T reverb. The default amount of reverb effect to be placed on specialized sounds. Okay. No idea what that's all about, but sure.
Not sure.
The submix that the output of sounds within the sound class are sent to by default. When set to none, the output will be sent to the sound class default submix specified in project settings. I'm not really understanding what they're trying to go for here, to be
I'm
honest.
not sure.
Um, you know, like, is this like the extra sound that is going to be playing in the default submix? Basically, like, hey, we're changing the sound in some fashion here, but the default submix, we're changing it to some other, or we're adding to like another sound or something like that, or what? And I'm not quite sure what they mean by not either. So
I'm not entirely sure either.
yeah. All right. Well, boy, our audio section is going well, isn't it? Oh well. I mean, it lets people know like where we stand in terms of audio, at
Yeah,
least.
we are not sound engineers. This is not our strong point.
Yeah.
We're
But I
mainly
mean,
programmers.
yeah. But I mean, at least we're willing to try to learn. We're trying to,
Put the effort
get
in
it.
learning.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, when it comes to, being a sound engineer, yeah, we're not, we don't have the experience with that. Um, which if there are sound engineers that are actually watching this or listening to it or whatever, then feel free to comment, about this, help us out, learn what we're missing, what, you know, maybe try to explain in some fashion or another how, what uh, we're maybe missing out along those lines, like, give a description about, what's going on with these and how do they differ in some fashion. That would be quite helpful. But examples will definitely help out. You know, because you can like if someone was like going, hey, you have one bird singing over here, you have another bird over here, they're singing with each other, and this particular effect cancels out the sound like right in the center, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And it's like if you kind of give that kind of description, then great. That kind of tells me exactly what that particular effect is, and then I might be able to use that in future games, right?
Right.
So, but obviously, there's a lot to learn. So, looting. When stream caching is enabled for a project, this setting controls how the compressed audio data is loaded. Okay. Inherited. When set to this option, the sound class inherits its loading behavior from its parent sound class. And what does it load?
Yeah.
What is the loading behavior all about? All right, moving on. Retain unload. The first chunk of audio for sounds within the sound class remains in the cache until explicitly deleted. Okay. Um, uh, I'm assuming that maybe it gives you like a certain number of like seconds or something like that, or like what exactly is this field? Is it just like a numeric number? Like how many seconds? Does it, or milliseconds? Um, is it like a percentage? You know, I don't really know. I kind of wish that they had like a screenshot for this a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm looking in where it says loading, and I'm not seeing anything that clarifies how it actually works.
prime on load. After being loaded, sounds within the sound class remains in the cache, but risk being removed to make space for other audio if unused for long periods of time. Okay. So, so if you load the sound, then um, then obviously it's primed to load. But if you're not playing it for an extended period of time, like you're going out of the zone for a long time, and you no longer need it, then it just kind of gets dropped until to a point where it's like, you know, hey, we might need to load this sound again, or like, hey, we're going back into this area, we need to load this. So for example, like uh, think Genshin Impact, for example, right?
Right.
If you're going from say Mondstadt to Liyue, right? When you're doing a teleport, you want the music to change from like the Mondstadt music to the Liyue music,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So so you would load in the Liyue, you know, while it's loading, and you basically put the Mondstadt kind of on the back burner, I guess you might say, like, you know, the retain on load, you know, section. So like if you ever like walk back to Mondstadt, then it might start, you know, being able to kind of play the audio, you know, initially while it loads everything else in, maybe. You know, I don't
Transitioning
know.
between one audio and the other, making it a little bit more smoothly.
Right. Um, but however, if you haven't been back to Mondstadt in a long time, then it might just be like removed altogether. So, like, you know, you go to Mondstadt once, and then you go back to Liyue, and you know, not you know, you don't go back to Mondstadt ever again throughout the entire gameplay. So Mondstadt would eventually drop off. You know, in terms of, you know, loading other audio files and stuff like that. So at least that's what I'm taking from it, from this right at this moment in time. So um,
Yeah.
uh,
It's not clear how they determine the unloading part, like how long it's there or how it's even handled.
yeah, it doesn't even look like they give you like a time, you know, time on here either. Like, you know, maybe it's on the whole retain on load or something like that. I don't really know.
I don't
But it
know.
doesn't look like there's anything here that really specifies like, hey, you know, this particular sound needs to stay there until, you know, uh, seconds or something like that. It might just be an engine process that gets handled. It might be like something that you have to set for settings. Who knows? Okay. Loaded on demand. Load on demand. No chunks of the audio are stored until the asset is played or primed. Okay.
That one's does make more sense. I mean, well, we have an audio loaded if set assets not that suppose you have that sound's not even there yet.
Yeah. And what does it mean by no chunks of the audio? It's like, wait, you know, are you trying to like save the end audio or something like that? It's like, you know, are you trying to save like the end of the audio for some reason to play it back again? You know, what are you guys doing here? You know, not quite sure what this is all about. So, force inline forces the sounds within the sound class to only use non-streaming decode paths, and no portion of the audio is stored in cache. Requires each sound wave asset's loading behavior override to also be sent to force inline. Yeah, I get that. I don't.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I'm not really understanding what they're trying to go for on that one at
Yeah.
all, so I'm gonna need some help on that one later.
Yeah, if someone knows what this is referring to, please let us know, because we don't know what that's actually referring to.
Yeah. And it's not like, you know, uh, like forces to sounds. Okay, sure. You know, how? You know, what's the non-streaming decode paths? No idea about those.
Nope.
You know, it's saying, and no portion of the audio is stored in cache. Okay, well, you know, was something like stored prior or something like that? Like, you know, what would be stored in the cache? You know, so you know, and I get it. You know, cache in reference to, you know, whenever you're talking about, you know, computer hardware, okay, there is, you know, cache memory, which typically is very fast. It gets referenced by the CPU typically, you know. That's what I think of when I think of cache.
Same.
So, and cache and RAM are not the same. Just bear in mind, you know, for anybody that's curious. It's still, you know, RAM is still really fast memory to be used, but it's not, you know, cache is built into the CPU itself to be used. Typically. I don't know if this is the same kind of cache though that they're referencing, because you know, I don't know if like the sound files are like, you know, typically they put a lot of handling certain functions, you know, and they give it to other, you know, other parts of like the computer hardware. Okay, like for example, graphics. You know, typically it tries to go to a graphics card if you have one, for the you know, graphics CPU to handle any of the requests concerning the graphics along those lines. Okay, so it doesn't bother the main CPU with, you know, with that extra data, right? Typically. So, now I have not heard ever about like a well, I mean, there are sound cards, but I don't think I've ever heard of a sound CPU before.
Neither have
Unless they've changed that recently, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm no hardware connoisseur, so I wouldn't be sure.
Yeah. You know, I haven't heard about a sound CPU. If they've recently made one, then great, sure, you know, makes sense. You know, you take a little bit more, you know, it handles more of the processes of handling sound than there's, you know, and let the CPU handle other tasks. You know, sounds reasonable to me. If that is indeed the case that is being handled nowadays, then sure, makes sense. You know, does that sound card have its own CPU? And if so, you know, that it has its own cache associated with it? And if so, you know, is that what it's referencing? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've never used a sound
Um,
card, so I don't really know.
yeah. So, um, so requires each sound wave assets loading behavior override. Okay, what is that? You know, sound waves assets loading behavior override. Don't know what that is. I mean, it's like, huh? And then of course, to also be set to force inline. In some ways it's like, I don't know exactly what the force inline is all about to really understand this second line and
Yeah, I
at
don't know
all
what it's
either.
referring
So
to.
yeah, so once we know what force inline is all about, then we'll have a better understanding of what the second line is referencing. But again, even the second line is just a little too overwhelming to understand at this point. So no, no, yeah. So um, I wanted to kind of break that down so people understand, like, where's some of the disconnect that I'm having, and
Yes,
maybe
I'm also
you're having
having
as
much of that disconnect as well.
yeah. So if anybody like comes on in and goes, okay, let's tackle this one by one, and let's give you some examples of what's going on. Here you go, here you go, here you go, and that would be fantastic. But
Yep.
um, obviously, we'll have to wait on that. Alright, so Legacy. This tab contains settings that were created before the audio mixer feature was added to the Unreal Audio engine. Some of these are only available when audio mixer is disabled. Audio mixer is enabled by default setting with version 4.24, and the legacy backends will soon be removed. Okay.
So I'm guessing Unreal Engine 5
So,
might not have this anymore.
well, I mean, they still put these in, but they're basically saying, hey, the audio mixers is basically taking over for this. So well, you can still try to use them, but more than likely it's gonna be gone. So you might as well not even bother.
Yeah.
You know. So radio filter volume of the radio filter effect to apply to the sounds within the sound class. Available on Windows, Xbox with the X Audio 2 backend. Okay. Again, not quite sure what's going on. Radio filter effect. Hmm. I mean, is it, something along the lines of, you actually sound like you're on the radio, like, hello, we're talking over the radio now, can you actually hear me? Well, is it something like that, or is it something else that's going on there? I'm not sure. So okay, radio filter volume threshold, the volume in which the radio filter kicks in, available on Windows and Xbox with the X Audio backend. So obviously it could be, low and muffled, or it could be, super loud. Who knows?
Probably.
Um, if enabled, or output to master EQ submix. If enabled, sends the sounds within the output for this sound class to the reverb system that was used before the audio mixer reverb system replaced it. The setting is still respected by the audio mixer. Okay. So, um, okay, so I guess there's like a reverb system that is kind of separate from the audio mixer reverb, or like maybe the audio mixer reverb system is kind of using, like, there's a class for
More like
the
an
audio.
older version, probably, of that one.
Well, I mean, they're saying that it still sends it to that reverb system. So it sounds like um
Like if you enable it, it'll respect that. If you don't enable it, it'll just rely on the reverb system, which is supposed to be replacing this.
Yeah. So basically, what the way I see it is, you have this reverb system that they initially built, right? Has all these classes, has all these functions and stuff like that that you can reference, directly if you really wanted to. And that's what this whole output to master EQ submix is kind of doing. It's referencing those classes, those functions, and so on and so forth directly, right? But now you have the audio mixer that comes on in. It's kind of built off of that reverb system, and it still uses those classes and functions and so on and so forth itself, but typically you want to use the audio mixer to kind of handle that for the most part instead of trying to access it directly. So that setting will still respect you still wanting to try to do that, access that, reverb system directly, but obviously you'll want to eventually switch on over to the audio mixer class, if you will, for like future work, because eventually they might say, okay, we're going to make all these classes super protected, and audio mixer is going to be the only one that can actually have access to the reverb system, and suddenly there goes your access. So at least that's how I'm interpreting it right at the moment. So,
Probably.
like Unreal Engine 5 might actually
Not have this anymore. Probably.
Yeah, so
it's possible they just removed it altogether.
Yeah, they might have just basically said, hey, you can't do this anymore. You're gonna have to use the audio mixer. So okay. They didn't bold this, but is UI sound? If enabled, the sounds within the sound class are audible within the user interface menus and during regular gameplay. The setting is still respected by the audio mixer. So, okay. So basically, if you're wanting to play music during the user interface as well as during regular gameplay, it has the same song in both the user interface and in the gameplay itself, then why not just let it continue, kind of a thing, right?
Right.
So yeah, we have is music. If enabled, the sound is marked as music. Oh, okay. Wow. I mean, what different? What? Why is it different? Why even bother with that? What's the,
the difference between is UI sound and is music? I'm guessing.
Well, no, I mean, well, not the is UI sound. I get that part of it. What I'm wondering about is what makes a sound, different if it's music or not music. You know what I'm saying? If I mark it for its music, what changes? What about the sound system does it go, okay?
Yeah, what
if you
parameters automatically change or are completely ignored?
Right, exactly.
What does it do?
Right. Does it automatically say, hey, this sound is going to have to repeat every single time? Or, does it use some form of orchestra kind of sound effect or something like that? It's oh, you're trying to change this into that, and therefore here's all the the sounds that you're trying to go for is a little bit more enhanced in some way. The trumpet actually sounds like a trumpet or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not very clear on what it does.
Yeah. So, Alright, well, that's the end of this section.
Yep.
So, we're gonna be moving on to audio console commands tomorrow.
Yep.
Because we're at the end of our section here, my friend.
So, yeah.
So,
It's already been an hour.
yep. Alright, so, I'm gonna be moving on to, video uploads, but I'll need to use the restroom in just a second. And then Warframe later, which you will be joining me?
Yep, I will. Once I
Okay.
join into Warframe, I'll probably talk a little bit about what I saw on the dev stream, which I did get to watch it.
Okay.
Uh,
Sounds good.
too bad you didn't watch it. You've gotten free Umbra Forma. They did
Understandable.
notify that on the Game Awards, Warframe's gonna give away Sevagoth
Really?
for everyone that watches it for at least half an hour.
Yeah. That might be really nice because Goth is kind of difficult to get. But
Yep, and you're not gonna get the Blu-ray. You get the Warframe, already
right.
pre-built.
Right. Okay. Well, I need to use the restroom.
Yep,
It's
and I need to get
hey,
some food.
you need
So.
to go.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay. See you in a little bit
Okay.
there, Jim.
Take care. Okay. See you in a bit. Bye.
Okay. I only understood part of what Soundclasses was referring to. Like Jim said, there's a few things that aren't very clear on what they do. Like this wasn't exactly very clear, since it's saying even some words that we don't even know. I mean, what the hell is referring to be the behavior in EQ? What is EQ? I don't know. I'm no sound engineer or sound expert. I don't know. There's also that last one. What the hell is it referring to? Is music. It doesn't tell us what it's doing. Like there were several things here we don't understand. So same goes for the whole loading one. Like when it unloads it, what's the determining factor for that? How do we determine the timer or the conditioning for unloading from the cache? This wasn't properly explained. I also feel. If there's any of the stuff that anyone actually understands this, leave it down in the comments below and explain it maybe to us. We'll be very grateful for every little bit of information about this sort of things. Yes, like I say, we're programmers. We're not sound experts, but this is something we have to learn until we can find someone to help us handle audio when it comes to making a game. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there right now. I need to go get some food, and I don't like eating on stream, so I'm gonna just close this down, and I'll be back in roughly an hour or so, hopefully less. And okay, so hope you all enjoyed today's stream, and I hope to see you all in a little bit. Bye bye.